p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Madeline Gao. The headlines at this are: the Interior Department reports that 8 people accused in flood control anomalies are now under custody. Meantime, President Bongbong Marcos has announced the launch of the Department of Public Works and Highways Transparency Portal. The President says the portal will allow the public to access information on government infrastructure projects. These include all live streaming of all ongoing procurements of the DPWH. He adds that the platform enables anyone to report irregularities in specific projects.
Ang Transparency Portal ay hindi lang isang website. Ito ay isang pangako. Ito ay isang sagot na digital na pader laban sa korupsyon. Ay magpapatibay sa ating paniniwala. Ang pamahalaan bukas, tapat at nakikinig sa sambayanan.
In the same press conference, the President reiterates his call to former Congressman Zaldy Co to return to the Philippines and face his cases. He also had this to say to his sister, Senator Imee Marcos, who earlier accused him, First Lady Liza Arneta, and son Sandro of illegal drug use.
For a while now, we've been very worried about my sister. And the reason that is because the lady that you see talking on TV is not my sister. And that view is shared by our cousins, our friends. Hindi siya yan. I hope she feels better soon.
Senate President Pro Tempore and Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Senator Ping Lacson says there are groups planning to install a civilian military junta. The reason he knows, he says, is because he was even invited to join this group. Lacson says the plan for a so-called reset in government was hatched before the rally by the Iglesia ni Cristo on November 16, and right after former Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldy Co came out with the first of a series of video statements. The senator was supposedly invited by retired police and military officials whom he declined to name and refused to reply to. For Lacson, the plot was coordinated and orchestrated with an intent to deliberately stir up anger in the public. This way, they will call for the resignation of President Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte. There's no place for succession in the plan, only a civil-military government that, for Lacson and Senate President Tito Soto, is simply against the Constitution.
Yeah, not only information, kasi may mga may message na sort of confirming na meron talagang such move, but only on the part of some retired military and PNP officials. Wala namang kumontak na active.
So, were you invited to join po?
Yes, na mag-join at saka maging part, just in case. Ako naman, hindi naman ako nagre-reply eh. Talagang as in dead ma. A series eh. Yeah, before the INC. Nag-escalate noong before the INC rally. Nag-escalate noong lumabas si Zaldy Co. Tapos hindi ko alam kung meron pa nung after ng speech ni Senator Imee. So kaya nga sabi ko, di ba, kung ako yung mag-analyze, mukhang calibrated, mukhang sunod-sunod yung mga pangyayari na yun, mukhang coordinated or orchestrated. And yun ang analysis ko, that's my own analysis. Hindi ko sinasabing yun ang hard fact. Yun ang, kasi series eh. Parang yung kulo, parang yung pag-percolate, parang minamaximize para talaga magalit yung mga tao.
Sir, anong gustong mangyari? Bababain si BBM? Ganun ba?
Hindi lang yun. Talagang reset. Meaning, pati some groups yung ibang groups kasi nagko-call sila total reset. Parang wala ang presidente, wala ang vice president. Tapos maski yung succession hindi po pwede. So civil military junta.
Ba't hindi po kayo pumayag, sir?
Unconstitutional eh. Hindi pumayag. Hindi ako nagre-reply. Hindi ako sumasagot. Kaya nga dead ma. Kasi kung magre-reply kami, discussion pa eh.
It'll be very difficult. Anything unconstitutional as far as running the government is concerned, we will turn into a banana republic.
The Interpol has released a blue notice on resigned Congressman Zaldy Co. That's according to Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla. A blue notice is, of course, used by law enforcement agencies to obtain information on a person, such as identity, location, and activities, and is not intended for arrest. Zaldy Co. has a warrant of arrest out now for 2 counts of graft and 1 count of malversation through falsification, as filed last week by the Office of the Ombudsman. At the moment, the Foreign Affairs Department says it has yet to receive a court order to cancel Co's passport. This legal document is key since Republic Act 11983, or the New Philippine Passport Act, requires explicit reasons for passport cancellation, such as criminal conviction, or if a person poses serious security threat or is already a fugitive. Meantime, Co has released a 4th video statement where he detailed 56 billion pesos of kickbacks, of alleged kickbacks from infrastructure projects that supposedly went to President Bongbong Marcos and former Speaker Martin Romualdez. This amount is on top of a supposed 100 billion peso insertion in the 2025 national budget that were initiated by the cousins, allegedly. Co claimed that he was a mere conduit in this scheme and did not receive a single centavo from the transactions. We're showing you portions of that clip, which at the end promised a part 2 again.
Papalabasin ng administrasyon na ako ay isang terorista sa loob at labas ng Pilipinas. Para mailibing ako kasama ang katotohanan kahit saan man ako pumunta. Sinabi na agad sa akin ni Speaker Romualdez na kailangan ko makapag-deliver ng 2 bilyong pesos kada buwan para sa pagdi-deliver ng male-maletang pera patungo sa bahay ni Speaker. Ang sinabi mismo ni Speaker Martin sa akin na hati sila ni Pangulong Marcos sa perang yon.
The camp of former House Speaker Martin Romualdez acknowledges the ICI, or the Independent Commission on Infrastructure's referral to the Ombudsman. In a statement, Romualdez's lawyer, Attorney Ade Fajardo, cited the ICI statement that the referral does not constitute any finding of guilt on his client's part. Fajardo also expressed confidence in the Commission's impartiality and trusts that the Ombudsman will conduct an independent and thorough review of the evidence. The ICI, with the Public Works Department, earlier recommended the filing of charges against Romualdez and several others over the flood control scandal.
The referral incorporates all evidence presented by former Speaker Martin Romualdez, his sworn affidavit, complete transcripts, and the full audio-video recording of his voluntary appearance before the Commission last October 14. We trust that the Ombudsman will conduct an independent, thorough, and objective review of the evidence submitted. From the outset, we have consistently maintained that a fair and complete assessment of the record will reflect the truth.
Well, just to be clear, the ICI document says that it is referring the case of Romualdez to the Ombudsman for further investigation. It's only for further investigation. Now, here are the other stories we're watching this Monday, November 24. The Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission has requested an Interpol red notice for former presidential spokesman Harry Roque over a human trafficking case. PAOK spokesman Winston Casio says the request was filed to the Philippine Center on Transnational Crime. An Interpol red notice is a request to law enforcement agencies in member countries to locate and arrest a person pending extradition, surrender, or other legal action.
Vice President Sara Duterte is hoping for favorable news from the International Criminal Court as its pre-trial chamber prepares to decide on the appeal for the interim release of former President Rodrigo Duterte. The ICC has confirmed that the decision will be released on November 28 at 10:30 in the morning. That's 5:30 p.m. Manila time. VP Sara also dismissed rumors circulating online that her father was found unconscious inside his detention cell at The Hague. And National Capital Region police offices will be on full alert starting November 28 ahead of the anti-corruption protests on November 30. Spokesperson Police Major Hazel Asilos says this ensures that all Metro Manila police are accounted for and ready for rapid deployment. Teams will handle crowd control, negotiation, monitoring, and arrests with CCTV live monitoring activated. Meantime, the Trillion Peso March movement that will not consolidate with groups who will stage a protest at Luneta since they're calling for resignations, while the TPMM wants accountability only.
And joining us today is Regina.
And joining me today is Edlinga. Kami lang.
Political pundit or heckler Ronald Llamas and star editor-in-chief. Star editor, huh? Aming
Philippine
Kapistuan.
Star, editor-in-chief.
They are off today. Ronald is, I think, off to Europe. Okay.
Doing his usual secretive things.
Oh, teka, may lumabas na bagong post. Nag-react agad.
Okay, so
Sabi ng Pangulo kanina, ay hindi yan ang kapatid ko. Nakikita niyo sa TV. Hindi yan ang aking kapatid.
correct. And well, that was just an hour ago because President Marcos held his press conference at 3 to talk about yung transparency portal which they've launched wherein you can see in more detail yung mga DPWH projects and you can see to the level of detail before the procurement and bidding part of the process. So you can actually see sino nagbid, for example, who they are, what their background is. You can actually also see a great level of detail on the projects that are on the website. So that's how it's different from the Sumbong Mo sa Pangulo website. In any case, during the press conference, he was asked what his reaction is to Senator Imee Marcos saying that, accusing him of using drugs, illegal drugs. Sabi ni President Marcos, as we just rolled a few seconds ago yung clip, he said, yung nakikita niya sa TV, hindi na yun si...
Hindi na kapatid ko.
Hindi na kapatid ko.
Oo.
That's not my sister anymore.
I-roll kayo natin ulit yung clip para bago mo ipasok yung reaction. Para fresh na fresh. Pwede ba i-roll natin yung clip ulit? Direct, roll natin yung clip.
Well, they're probably looking it up.
Okay, I thought it was okay, sige.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyways, so yun nga, sabi ni President Marcos, I don't know her. The person you're seeing on TV is not my sister. We've all been worried for a while about her. And by we, he means family, friends, cousins, etc. So I don't know how many of the big Marcos Romualdez family are worried for Imee.
Dato na. Sige, ito yung sinabi ng Pangulo kanina.
For a while now, we've been very worried about my sister. And the reason that is because the lady that you see talking on TV is not my sister. And that view is shared by our cousins, our friends. Hindi siya yan. I hope she feels better soon.
Yun lang, sumagot yung
Lagay mo sa big screen. Kaya ba sa big screen? Okay, basahin mo.
Sige. Ang sagot ng kapatid sa official Facebook page ni Senator Imee Marcos, and we quote, "Bongbong, ako to." Teka. Ipakita natin. Ito. Kita ba? Sige, kaya ba ni-zoom in? Ang sabi niya, "Bongbong, ako to, kung ano-ano nakikita mo, ading." Sorry. It is a bit funny though.
It is very funny. It's
First line pa lang yan, meron pa eh. Patunayan mong mali ako. Gusto kong mali ako. Yun.
posted just 25 minutes ago, so fresh na
please.
fresh. So obviously, Senator Imee was watching the press conference that her brother was giving, so nakapag-react siya kaagad. I was gonna say, nakakatawa naman siya if it weren't so tragic, because remember, this involves all of us, right? If it weren't for the president having a very public spat with his sister, it would have been really funny. Pero parang naging
Magsasagutan
parang
pa rin
away.
sa social media.
Kaya nga sa social media, Well, that's how Senator Imee responds, as we know.
Baka mamaya may pelikula si Daryl Yap dyan. May video na si Daryl Yap. So yun, ang sabi ng kapatid, ng presidential sister, Bongbong, ako ito. Kung ano-ano nakikita mo, ading, may paramdam pa na ano.
Ading naman talaga tawag niya.
Oo, pero kung ano-ano pa nakikita mo.
May shade pa talaga, no? Kung ano nakikita mo. Even si President Marcos through shade at his sister, di ba, nung sinabi niya na I hope she feels better.
Yeah, and
Suggesting
worried daw
na-
yung family about the sister.
I hope she feels better, suggesting talaga na she is unwell. And making it sound like lahat sila are worried
Are
for
worried.
her. Yes.
And that's the same message naman being delivered by the sister. Now we're all worried about Bongbong because of, supposed drug use. So may ganun silang pitikan. Kung kailan tumanda.
Okay. Ay, nako.
Okay,
And the thing is,
Sige.
kaya nga, I mean, not so long ago, remember that Senator Imee was campaigning for her brother, diba?
And convinced Sarah to
Run
with her.
alongside her brother. They were very, very convinced. Ito na nga yung sinasabi natin about the personal becoming the part of our fabric, our political fabric. Na this was at some point she was very convinced that si President Marcos, Bongbong Marcos, would make a great president in tandem with Sara Duterte, and here we are 3.5 years later.
In tandem with
They're
her
in a
being
very-
super ate ang pagkakabansag niya
Super
sa
ate.
kanya.
Oo.
Super ate.
Oo, tama.
Oo,
She was
alam mo
very
na,
proud of the
I
fact
will
na
be
siya
your
yung nag-broker
super ate.
nun. One of those that brokered that alliance. And now here we are, 3.5 years later, in a very, very public spat.
Super spot.
Super spat. Okay, what else did we learn from that press conference? Si President Marcos was asked about ES Bersamin. Nag-resign nga ba? Or was he fired? We all know at this point he was fired. But President Marcos, all he said was, we talked about this and we'll leave it between the two of us. Meaning him and Lucas Bersamin. Wala naman daw acrimonious feelings, walang ill feelings, walang there wasn't any bad blood between the two of them, but they talked about it, they settled it between the two of them, and they will leave it at that. Which I don't think is necessarily fair because it's a public issue, right? It's a very public issue. Was
Pwedeng,
Lucas...
kami na lang yan.
Oo, hindi pwedeng kayo lang...
Kami na lang yan. Hindi pwedeng ganun.
Oo, nag-usap na kami.
Nagkasundo na kami.
Nagkasundo na kami. We'll leave it at that. Kami na
Huwag na kayo
mag-usap.
makialam.
Oo, this is, I mean, on the one hand, how can you talk about radical transparency and on the other hand, di ba? Sabihin mo, let's just leave it at that. Kami na lang yun.
Talaga sa Pilipinas, ang transparency has to be radical.
Kailangan because
It's not regular eh.
Hindi,
It's radical.
hindi radical. It has to be radical. It has to be the whole process. Otherwise, walang nangyayari. I mean, we get nowhere, right? We get selective transparency, as I was just talking about, right? How can you say na we want transparency end to end, but on the other hand, it's a very valid question. Was ES Bersamin involved in any way in the flood control scandal? It's a very valid question, right? Which,
If it's enough to boot him out, then perhaps it's also enough to institute some legal proceedings. Perhaps, Inga, di ba? Besides, anyway, he is your little president. It's not just somebody you booted out just like that.
yes, exactly. And at some point when he was ES, he held so much power.
Well, the
Diba?
ES always holds so much power.
Well,
He
yeah.
signed for the president.
Exactly. At saka ano yung involvement, may questions din yung sa involvement ng grandnephew niya, right? Si Adrian Bersamin, which have not been settled
been with
at this
him
point.
all the
So
way from
I
Supreme
don't
Court.
think it's necessarily right for the president to say, let's just leave it at that. Nag-usap na kami, there's no bad blood. We don't care if there's bad blood between the two of you. What we care about is the accountability here. Was Lucas Bersamin involved in any way? Was his grandnephew involved in any way?
What
Right?
matters is where the blood trail leads.
Anyways, let's shift gears now. and,
Cambio.
Cambio na, because we are talking to our guest today. We've got attorney Ferdinand Topacio, who is the lawyer to Cassandra Leong. Good afternoon, attorney. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, Ma'am Regina. Sir Ed, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon na po, sir.
Afternoon pala, I'm sorry. It's just been a busy Monday. Mondays are always busy. My apologies.
Yes. Well, not as busy as last week's start of the week. But anyway.
Attorney, nasaan na yung client nyo? Are you still the lawyer of Cassandra Leong?
Opo, kasi ang principle po of legal engagement is that as long as you have not been terminated as the lawyer, the legal engagement subsists. And so we are still duty-bound to render whatever legal services we can in order to protect her interests to the best of our ability and under the circumstances obtaining.
You're saying you... It sounds to me like you're saying that you've basically not been fired at this point, but are you continuously engaging with your client?
Well, we had no communication for some time now, but of course, there are some legal matters ongoing, and with respect to that, we continue to render legal assistance to Miss Cassandra Leong.
How long is some time now, exactly? Give me a time range.
Well, our last communication was around the time that she was released lawfully from detention.
December.
After the last Congress went into sine die
was
recess.
June.
Was according to the case of Palay, since the purpose for the detention of a resource person has terminated upon the termination of the legislative inquiry, then she has to be released. Kasi wala naman pong krimen na nagawa at wala naman namang warrant of arrest si Ms. Cassandra Leong. The detention was made solely under the powers granted to the legislature upon legislative inquiry.
Right. So when she was released by Congress, so that would make it December 2024?
Yes, that is why we were mystified as to why Risa Ontiveros does not seem to know that she has been released at that time, being a member of Congress also. And Risa seems to know almost everything there is to know about the Philippines. So I was wondering why she did not know that.
Well, to be fair, there are a lot of things to keep track of, right? We are dealing with several heavy national issues. Even for us, it's hard to keep track of all these things. But you're saying that you haven't spoken to her since December 2024. That's nearly a year, attorney.
Or thereabouts. I cannot really put a finger on the exact date when communication ceased, but it has been for quite some time. In fact, we have an ongoing case in Pasay that she has not been attending, so that we cannot fully participate in the proceedings, unfortunately.
Sir, let me just back up a bit. So she was released in December 2024 from Senate custody or from the Correctional Institute of Women in Mandaluyong?
From the Correctional Institute, because that is where the Quadcom, strangely enough, ordered her to be detained, although
I remember
the
this.
Women's Correctional is not part of the legislative. It is an adjunct of the executive branch being under the DILG. So we were mystified, but then there was this order that we had to obey. So that is where she was held until her release in December 2024.
So magmula noon, bali almost going into a year since her release.
Almost a year na po.
Okay. But the arrest warrant was only issued, I think, in May of this year.
Opo. At the time, we were not having any more communication with Miss Cassandra Leong at the time. We were able to communicate very sporadically through intermediaries, but not directly.
I guess you don't know where she is at this point?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. What I know is what I read from the papers and reports, of course, from our friends in media like yourselves.
And you also have no... Because let me get one thing clear. You represented her, but not the other... yung boyfriend niya, supposedly, that's the brother of Alice Guo, correct? You don't represent him.
Yung so-called Pogo Girls, for lack of a better term, isa lang po ang aking kliyente roon.
Si Cassandra.
And that is Miss Cassandra Leong.
So how does that work, Attorney, you haven't spoken to her in nearly a year. You don't know where she is. How could you still be, you said that you were still representing her in some legal matters that have come up in, was it Mandaluyong?
Actually, it doesn't work
Oh.
because in her case in Pasay,
Pasay pala, Pasay.
since the court has not acquired jurisdiction over her, then we cannot participate in the proceedings. So it's really difficult. Now, we wish we could have had some communication with her prior to the progress of that case, but unfortunately, it was not to be.
There were some reports that she's in Japan.
Oo nga
Are
eh.
you familiar with that report that she is in Japan? According to the PAOK, Winston
Vincent
Casio.
Casio.
Yes, well, all I know, as I've said, is what I read in the papers. The government would have more resources at its disposal to try to locate her. As lawyers, we only get what information she chooses to share with us. And thus far, there has been a dearth of any communication.
So how will that work moving forward? Are you going to try to keep this case, given that your client has been non-responsive? You don't even know her whereabouts.
Well, we
I
are duty
apologize
bound
for that.
under the rules on legal ethics and the Code of Professional Responsibility. In fact, even if the client is present and you want to withdraw from a case, you have to seek the approval of the court before you withdraw. So how it works is that a lawyer, once engaged, must continue representing the client in whatever way he can, in the best way he can, according to the best of his ability. Otherwise, he will be recreant in his duties as a lawyer. Whether there is communication or not, in a limited capacity, we are trying our best to still protect her interest, as is our bounden oath as advocates.
In the course of trying to protect her interest, have you been in touch at all with Harry Roque, Attorney Harry Roque?
Harry Roque, no. Harry Roque is not my client.
No,
In
I
fact,
know, but
my
in the
relationship with Harry Roque is spotty, actually, if you Google it up.
Yes,
We
yes, I do
haven't
know. Oo.
always been on the same side. But as a lawyer, I commiserate with his position because it would appear that he was just being a lawyer. He was just doing his job, and yet he was implicated in a grave case of human trafficking. I think it's not fair, not because I like Harry Roque, but because he's a lawyer doing what a lawyer does, and yet he was involved by the government in all of this.
No, I know. I know about your history. The reason I asked is because they are both implicated in the same POGO, right? Lucky South 99. So I'm wondering whether, in the process of building up Cassandra's case, whether you've had to reach out to Harry to try to get some details right. Kasi sila yung, remember it was this is not the Bambam, was it the Bamban POGO?
Porac. This is the
Porac,
Porac
that's
Pogo.
it. This is the Porac
Yes, the
POGO.
Porac Pogo.
Oo.
Well, when Harry was here, of course, being a professional and a team player, we would interact with everyone, all of the lawyers of Alice Guo, the lawyer of Sheila Guo, who is a good friend of mine, Archie Fortun. We would interact, of course, with Harry Roque, but now that Harry Roque has also made himself scarce, well, it would be difficult to interact with him now. Although, as I understand it, Harry Roque still represents some of the people to the persons in his law office who are present in the country.
So how confident are you're still going to be able to defend your client well, given that you have zero communications with her for nearly a year now, and plus a red notice has been issued against her?
Well, it's difficult because, as I've said, since jurisdiction was not acquired by the court over the person of our client, Ms. Cassandra Leong, then under the rules of court, we are prohibited from participating in any portion of the proceedings except to sit in as observers. We cannot talk, we cannot object, we cannot make manifestations. We can only sit and listen. So it's quite difficult.
That's because she has not been arraigned. Is that what you mean?
Yes, definitely, Sir Ed.
Okay. But let me back up a bit then. Kasi like you said nga, you have not been in touch with her. How do you know that she still is your client, is there any other way of communicating? Well, for example, compensation-wise, does she still compensate you for your services, or that's
Pro bono na to,
a
attorney.
pro bono issue?
Well, not exactly, but of course, the law is a profession. It's not a business. Compensation is secondary here. What is primordial with respect to a lawyer's duties is to protect the interests of his or her client to the best of his ability. And the principle is, unless you are terminated expressly by your client, then you have to keep giving legal assistance, advice, and other matters that to protect her interests. In fact, even if you no longer want to represent a client and he or she is present, the court will not just allow you to stop representing him or her. You still have to do an exit strategy to make sure that when you finally leave the employ of your client, her rights are still protected until after she secures the services of a new lawyer. So, hindi po yan parang, hindi ka na binabayaran, ayoko na. Hindi po pwede yan. That's why they describe the legal profession as the priesthood at the altar of the law.
Okay, sir. So what's next for you? I mean, what's next for you and her side, in effect? Okay, there's an arrest warrant already out and a red notice.
Well, our options, as I've said, are extremely limited. Without her having, without her being repatriated to the country, then, as I've said, in the cases where she is involved, all that we can do is sit in court and listen and take notes so that when we finally are able to restore communication lines with her, we would be able to give her the benefit of our best advice. And if she is repatriated and brought back to the country and she's brought before the bar of justice and arraigned, then we are able to still continue with the flow and represent her without missing a beat.
And you're okay doing this for much longer?
Of course.
I mean, it sounds like you're not getting paid at this
a lot of
point.
people for no compensation at all. We are paid counsels here, to be candid, of course, and as I said, we cannot just abandon a client just because there is no communication.
Yes.
Unless there is reliable communication reaching us that, we are to desist from acting as her counsels. Until then, well, we have to discharge our duties. That is how it is, and that is how it shall
Yes.
always be, with respect not only to us,
Right.
but to all lawyers.
That's well and good, attorney, but there's also no indication that she might cooperate with the authorities at all. So you could be waiting a very long time. That's what I was asking you. Are you going to be okay with that? So you mean to say you're going to be representing her for years? Even if this case drags on, even if they don't find her.
Profession. That is the profession that I swore an oath to take, and that is what I have to do. Because the oath of a lawyer is sacred, more than any other consideration, more than money, more than safety, more than convenience. We have to discharge our duty as a lawyer.
Okay, so Paox Winston Casio says he believes that Cassandra Ong is hiding together with a certain Ronelyn Paterna, sorry.
That must be Baterina. She's also one of the resource persons.
Correct.
Before the Senate and the House, but we do not represent her.
Okay,
Although we have met her a few times. Wait, well, Mr. Casio would know. Maybe with respect to Mr. Casio, it's just a matter of time. Casio di ba relo yun?
Oh, man.
Sir, teka. Okay.
Corny.
Medyo corny yan, sir. Sir, teka.
Attorney.
Pinapatawa mo kami. Pero sir, for all intents and purposes, she is in hiding. She is a fugitive. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. That I will have to admit. And so, if I get a chance to communicate with her, I will advise her to follow the law. We will not advise her to do any act that would be violative of our law. Otherwise, we would not be exhibiting fealty to our oath as lawyers.
So your advice to her is to surrender, to turn herself over?
Well, I cannot broadcast my advice to her on air because that would violate the sanctity of lawyer-client privilege.
Attorney,
But
tayo lang
rest
naman
assured that no lawyer will ever advise his or her client to violate the law.
Okay lang, attorney, tayo lang naman. You can tell us. It's just Ed and me.
Walang nanonood. Pero sir, I'm taking it from what you said a while ago na you're advising her to follow the law. In this case, the
Yes,
law,
we
of
always
course, is looking
advise
for her.
anyone, all of our clients, to follow the law. But of course, the final decision is always the clients to take. We cannot force them. As they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're in limbo because you don't know where she is. We don't know where she is. The authorities don't know where she is at this point. They had to issue a red alert, and we're now waiting on any sort of sign of life from your client.
Well, it would appear that way. Well, that is the unfortunate situation that we are now in.
On a different note, Attorney, I wonder, are you involved at all in the flood control investigation? Meron kang clients amongst the personalities that are being brought up?
No, actually, I was asked by some, but there is an evident conflict of interest arising from the fact that I am the deputy spokesman of the PDP, a political party that has made a strong stand against the flood control scandal. And it would be incongruous on my part as a private practitioner to defend someone who is being denounced by my party.
You were
that's
asked by whom?
interesting.
Well, a lot of them I would not want to divulge. But as I told our acting chairman, Al Cusi, serving the PDP is becoming a costly proposition for me because there are so many clients that I cannot accept.
So that are directly implicated in the flood control investigation?
Yes, directly implicated. There are at least
ano to,
three who have approached me.
legislators,
Some of
DPWH
one of which
engineers?
is a long-time friend of mine. So, well, this is a choice that we have to make when you have to choose between personal advantage and the country. One must always choose the country.
Yeah. But ano to, Attorney, are they legislators? Are they DPWH engineers? Are they
They
contractors?
are contractors. Some of them are contractors. And there is at least one from the executive that I had to decline, who is now supplying the government with a lot of information.
Okay. Okay. baka si ano yun.
Hindi mo naman client,
Baka si-
attorney. Pwede mo sabihin sa amin.
Wag. Discretion. A lawyer must exercise a certain amount of discretion when it comes to these things.
How is PDP doing at this point?
It's okay. It is the last remaining legitimate opposition party with the national
Attorney.
constituency. We have 3 senators. We have several governors, a few congressmen. Of course, as is always the case in this country, the party in power always rates the other party. So that is why whoever sits as president always has the majority. It's always the same story over and over again.
Well, sir.
I don't know that you're the last legitimate opposition party. I think we're going to have problems with the other parties if we
No,
allow
I
that.
said with a national constituency.
With a
Because,
may
because we
qualifier.
have 3 senators. That is what I meant. There are also other parties.
There
and
are.
In fact, we have common ground with a lot of them. Even the so-called left of center parties, we have a lot of common ground with them with respect to the issue of corruption. I think this issue, the one of flood control corruption, is an issue that transcends political colors and
course.
persuasions.
Of course.
Pero sir, yung issue ng reset, it's been coming up over and over again. Now we're hearing reset not just from not just from retired military officers. In fact, Ping Lacson acknowledges being asked to join in a civil military junta. Even the Bagong Alyansa Makabayan on the left is calling for a transition council, resignation of both the president and the vice president, transition council taking over, composed only of civilians until a time when elections can be called for. What's your party's position on this?
We have made our position very clear. The PDP is against any form of extra-constitutional regime change. Any change must be made within the parameters and the four corners of our Constitution. Hindi kami doon sa bend the law. Ayaw namin yung bend the law. Because when you start bending the law, then you might end up accidentally, wittingly, or unwittingly breaking the law. So tayo po, kung magre-resign ang Pangulo, the Vice President takes over. Kung gusto nila a reset, there is a manner by which the Constitution can give a reset without going over the bounds of its mandates. That is, for both the President and the Vice President to resign, in which case the Speaker becomes a caretaker for 30 days until special elections are held. Pero wag po tayong lalabas sa Konstitusyon. Let us show to the world and to our people that we are a mature democracy, that we can effect a self-cleansing within the bounds of our fundamental charter.
Pero sir, hindi ba una muna yung Senate President before yung Speaker? Isn't the Senate
Speaker
President...
po ang magiging caretaker kung dalawa po ang vacancies sa ating ang Constitution po.
You meant pag nag-resign ang Presidente and Vice President?
Whether there are two vacancies, then there should be an election to be held. The Speaker is on holdover or caretaker, for lack of a better term, capacity. But that's only for 30 days. Yun po ang reset. Pwede po yun. Parang yung nangyari, although that was not in the 73 Constitution, yung ginawa ni Pangulong Marcos din noon, di ba? Yung stop elections, which led directly to the 1986 EDSA Revolution. Ayun, extra-constitutional yun. And it may have been justified during that time, but now that we have a constitution that was ratified truly by the Filipino people and that has been found to be working, and then gamitin po natin yung konstitusyon. Huwag po tayong lalabas sa konstitusyon. Ayaw din po ng PDP laban ng karahasan. Ayaw namin ng military junta. Ang hirap po kasi sa military junta, minsan nasasarapan yung military, ayaw nang magkaroon ng democratic elections. Mahirap na po yan eh. We should not be taking any chances when it comes to the future of our country. Constitution lang po tayo, the highest law of the land ratified by the people.
Okay, but that's interesting. So you're not opposed to a resignation of both the President and the Vice President, so long as you follow the succession.
Actually, because we cannot be opposed to any resignation of anybody, because always in the final act, it is the discretion of the President or the Vice President whether they want to resign.
So,
our call is for, of course, the President to resign. But there are some who are apprehensive that this is a ploy to make the Vice President take over, although it cannot be a ploy if the Constitution itself provides for it. Now, if the President thinks that the Vice President should succeed, then it is his option whether to resign or not. But the President must realize that he struggles on, he soldiers on as President with a deeply depleted political base and a much reduced political capital and a crisis of credibility that renders it very difficult for him to govern at this point.
So that's what you guys are calling for the President to outright resign. And
yes,
you think,
but of course
you're
we
saying
cannot
it's
force
not a
him.
ploy.
And note to Mr. John Vic Remulla, calling on anyone to resign is not seditious. So please save your strength for the flood control investigations. Huwag naman kaming idama yung mga malayang kritiko, mga lehitimong kritiko na naghahayag lang po ng aming saloobin.
You're right, that's not seditious. There has to be an element of tumultuous action. You have to be inciting tumultuous.
And we are against that. We are against any form of violence.
Okay.
We are against violence in any form, shape, or manner. That is clear from the PDP platform of governance.
And how are you? So this is the party's official stance, but how are you?
Yes, it is. I'm now talking as a deputy spokesperson. We have made that clear in so many of our statements released to media. Kasi naniniwala po kami kay Sting dun sa kanyang kantang Fragile. Nothing comes from violence and nothing ever will.
Okay. Is that the English version or the Portuguese version?
Parang napakanta pa yata si Sir Ed dun.
So when you call when you communicate this to your members, claro, your call is for the president to resign. What else are you asking them to do? Because as you pointed out, you do have members in very high office in the government, right? So what specifically are you asking them to do?
Well, for the most part, ma'am, we are calling on the public, not only our elected members, but the public not to stop clamoring, demanding, asking for accountability. Sapagkat nakikita po namin, we fear and we therefore allege that there seems to be a systematic cover-up. Nakikita naman po natin siguro yung mga recent pronouncements ng ating Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman na si Ping Lacson, na parang may ceiling siya na he cannot go beyond a certain ceiling na hindi na siya makalampas doon. Parang hanggang doon na lang siya at piniprejudge pa niya yung mga witnesses, which is highly unseemly pending the final report of the committee. Bakit yung findings ng committee as to credibility, yung weight ng pronouncement should be made collectively by the committee, the whole committee, and not by the chairman itself. Ngayon pa lang, binobroadcast na niya yung mga preferences niya. Anong maaasahan po natin dyan sa Blue Ribbon Committee na yan?
Sir, balikan ko lang yung kanina. I was talking kanina about the Senate President being the third in line. I think I found the reference here. Article 7, Section 8 of the Constitution, in case of death, permanent disability, removal from office, or resignation of both the President and the Vice President of the Senate, or in case of his inability, the Speaker of the House shall act as President until the President and Vice have been elected or qualified.
Yes.
So, mauna po muna yung Senate President.
Yes. Anyway, but you have to consider the circumstance when both the presidency and the vice presidency becomes vacant simultaneously.
Yes, sir. Yan nga, sir. Section 8. In case of death, disability, or resignation of both the President and the Vice President.
And the Vice President.
Then the President of the Senate, or in case of his inability, the Speaker of the House shall act as President until the Pres or VP shall have been elected and qualified according to a law to be passed by Congress. So, yun po. Actually, it's interesting, when you think about it. So,
well, at any rate,
and I suppose when you think about it, sir, when you think
that is the reset allowed by the Constitution. So we need not look beyond that.
Yes, sir. But you're amenable to that. In other words, so you're amenable to that. Basta lang you don't go beyond the Constitution. Kung kailangan mag-resign pareho, okay lang yun.
It's not a matter of being amenable to that because, as I've said, resignation ultimately is the will of the President and the Vice President.
Yeah.
So whatever they think is right, whatever they think is good for the country, we leave it up to them. All we can do is ask. The giving is up to them.
Okay.
But clearly, so you said you have one clear call, which is for the president to resign. But how does him resigning solve all of the corruption problems? Constitutionally, of course, the vice president steps up when the president is unable to carry out his duties. How does that fix our problems?
It does not fix the corruption problem, but it goes directly to the heart of accountability. There is a widespread belief that the president is involved in the insertions. Rightly or wrongly, there is a significant section of the population that believes that. And as the recent surveys indicate, there is an 82% there is an 82% of the number of those surveyed who think that there is corruption. There is a lot of corruption in government. That speaks of a depleted goodwill on the part of the president being the chief executive. Because as I've said, he can choose to trudge on, but he will have to govern with a much depleted political base, a crisis of credibility, and a radically reduced political capital with respect to these things.
Right, but again, when you talk about accountability, even the vice president has issues of accountability, right? As we all just saw at the start of the year. In fact, I was joking to somebody that we feel like quasi-lawyers because we started off the year talking about impeachment. Then it became the International Criminal Court. And now we're ending the year
It's about
talking about
resetting.
the flood control investigation. But the point being that, I mean, the whole point that she was impeached by Congress is over accountability, right? So again, how does that fix things, calling for the president to resign?
Well, with respect to that the evidence seems to indicate, without the impeachment, let's not go into the impeachment because the impeachment is a political action on the part of the legislature as a means of a check and balance on the executive. But speaking outside of the impeachment, there appears to be a paucity of evidence for such accountability. In fact, the Commission on Audit has already cleared the Vice President of that. So, of course, it doesn't mean that she will not be impeached or she cannot be impeached because it's a totally different matter. But between a widespread flood control controversy costing the government billions, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of pesos, and a issue of confidential funds, which is nebulous at best, of course, the accountability, the guilt is more prevalent under the leadership of this government because the vice president can only do so much. She can only have access to so much funds. And the funds to which she has access have properly been accounted for. And I'm not the only one saying this. A lot of people are saying this from a legal standpoint.
I don't know that it was properly
that is why
accounted
we are
for.
going to accountability because number one, as the president said and admitted, he has read all 4,000 plus pages of the GAA for 2025 and yet he has seen no insertions, only to backtrack and say that there are now insertions. Number two, the leaders of Congress that have made these insertions are, well, let's not be coy about it, handpicked by him. That is his first cousin, the speaker, who has also handpicked Zaldy Co as chairman of the Committee on Appropriations. So,
Right,
you know,
but
as
you just
between two people, who is the most prone or the most deserving of accountability? So that we have to weigh at these things.
Sir,
now,
I think,
if he
sir,
doesn't want to resign, of course, that is always
Attorney.
the prerogative of the president, and we will always respect that.
Sir, I think you're referring to the unmodified opinion released by the co of the vice president, but that's only a formatting issue. There's no decision yet by the COA to withdraw or to withdraw the notice of disallowance against VP Sara for how much, 70 plus million in confidential funds. That's still pending, sir. The unmodified opinion does not have to do with the specific receipts being questioned by the COA. And also, sir, we're not looking at an unmodified opinion by the resident auditor of COA. The confidential funds are audited by a special unit of COA, which is the ICFAO, the Intelligence and Confidential Funds Auditing Unit. And that's the one that issued the notice of disallowance. So it's medyo apples and oranges, sir.
It's let's not conflate things. So she hasn't been cleared of the use of confidential funds, in short. Even the Supreme Court decision on the impeachment, diba, did not render a decision on the rightness,
not on the merits,
on her guilt, on the merits of the case. It was just rendering it based on the procedure that Congress followed. So,
well, whatever it may be, no criminal charges have been filed in connection with these funds. With respect to the flood control funds, criminal charges have started to be filed, and they have just started investigating around 100 or so days.
We
but,
understand, sir.
you know, it's not really a matter of, quantity, who is more guilty or not, or whatever. The thing is, the president is the chief executive. At least by command responsibility, the buck stops with the president. That is why we have that reason for our call. Now, if people do not subscribe to our appeal or to our reasoning, of course, we will always respect that. We are a democratic society. Sabi ko nga, walang pilitan.
Yes, sir.
Pero what must be done at this point is to satisfy the people that something is being done. And if that does not happen, of course, we can reach 2028, but we are like a heavily damaged ship that is limping to shore. Our stock exchange is the worst performing in the world.
Right.
At pandemic levels.
Attorney-
The peso is at 60 to $1, etc., etc. So these are effects of a lack of confidence that has to be addressed immediately.
Yeah. But things are being done. As you pointed out, a few people have been arrested and charges have been filed in this case. So things are being done. The question that we're debating right now is what is going to qualify as accountability to you, right? To what does being done look like to you? Ed, I think you had the last comment, or Ed?
Yes, follow the blood trail. Something it may be done, but katulad nung nangyari dun sa EDSA, if you recall, the Agrava Commission stopped at Luther Custodio when the people wanted General Ver to be indicted for the killing of Ninoy Aquino. So what happened? The whole thing blew up in 1986. So it's not just a matter of things being done. It's a matter of the people thinking that enough is being done. If they think that not enough is being done, then there will be no degree of satisfaction, no closure, and therefore a potential powder keg situation.
Yeah. Okay. We shall leave the conversation there. But thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. It's
Always
been
very good to have you, sir.
It's always good to be talking to
Attorney
you.
Ferdinand Topacio, lawyer to Cassandra Leong, and spokesperson of PDP Laban.
Maraming
Join us
salamat,
again
sir.
tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.